Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Hold nobody
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? Today is Tuesday, October 31st, 2023. Coming up on Roland Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network. A Mississippi mother wants answers after an off-duty Jackson police officer killed her son. She wasn't even notified for months, even after filing a missing persons report. She and her attorney, Crump, will join us to discuss their call for a DOJ investigation. A Texas family is considering suing Northwestern State University in Louisiana over the murder of their son. The family's attorney will give us details about this bizarre case that led to the resignation of the school's head football coach and the cancellation of the season. FBI Director Chris Wray warned Congress about the potential terror attacks on U.S. soil inspired by Hamas attacks on Israel. We'll be joined by award-winning journalist Rula Jebreal to discuss how this war could lure the U.S. back into a war in the Middle East. An Alabama man is charged with threatening Georgia DA Fani Willis because of her prosecution of Donald Trump and others. And Brett Favre's defamation lawsuit against Shannon Sharpe gets tossed by a judge. Folks, it's time to bring the funk. I'm Roland Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, roll, y'all. It's Roland Martin, Rolling with Roland now. He's funk, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now.
Folks, if you really want to understand how much of a joke Republicans are, just look at the fact that President Joe Biden asked Congress to allocate about $14 billion to Israel for their battle against Hamas. So Republicans go, sure, let's do that. So how about we, to pay for that, we'll take the $14 billion from the bill that was passed to fund the IRS, including making it easier to folks file so they don't have to use things like turbocharge. Now, last I checked, these are so-called fiscal conservatives. They love talking about the debt. How you gonna pay the debt off if, one, you keep allowing tax cheats to rip the country off of billions and billions of dollars? Goes to show you the Republican Party does not care about the little man. They don't care about the poor. They are literally the party of the rich. My panel, Mustafa Santiago Ali, former senior advisor for environmental justice, the EPA, out of D.C., joins me right now. Also, Randy Bryant, DEI disruptor, out of D.C. as well, and will be joined by, also joining us, Joy Chaney, founder of Joy Strategies out of D.C. as well. So this is hilarious to me, Mustafa. They were angry when this passed Congress, saying, oh, they're going to be unleashing these IRS agents upon the working man and working woman in the country. Lied. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen made clear that the money was not going to go towards folks who are middle class, small business owners. They were using the money to go after the rich. Why? Because Republicans have literally defunded the IRS over the last 10 to 20 years because they've been helping out their rich donors.
Yeah, that's exactly right. They don't want to cut off the money pipeline to the Republican Party. And they understand that if everybody's held to the same standard that the IRS uses, then those, millionaires and billionaires who for years look for loopholes, who have, had all these different ways of not paying the fullness of the tax that they owe, then they would no longer be able to benefit, them being the Republican Party, from those dollars that continue to support these bad sets of actions and bad policies that help to benefit them. So, folks should just be very clear about the game that they're playing and how they know that they are losing folks who want to support them, so they have to shore up their base.
Senator Chuck Schumer took to the floor. He spoke about this, and he really was also calling out again these Republican efforts. So check this out.
Troubled that yesterday House Republicans released a partisan and woefully inadequate package with no aid to Ukraine, no humanitarian assistance for Gaza, no funding for the Indo-Pacific, and, in addition, poison pills that increase the deficit and help wealthy tax cheats avoid paying their fair share. The House GOP bill is woefully inadequate and has the hard right's fingerprints all over it. It makes aid for Israel, who has just faced the worst terrorist attack in its history, contingent on poison pills that reward rich tax cheats. In short, it makes it much, much harder to pass aid for Israel. It's insulting that the hard right is openly trying to exploit the crisis in Israel to try and reward the ultra-rich. The new speaker knows perfectly well that if you want to help Israel, you can't propose legislation that is full of poison pills. And this kind of unnecessarily partisan legislation sends the wrong message to our allies and adversaries around the world. It's almost as if the real goal of this House GOP package is not to help Israel, but to get tax relief for the super wealthy, while leaving out Ukraine aid, leaving out humanitarian aid for Gaza, leaving out funding for the Indo-Pacific. I'm deeply troubled that yesterday House Republicans released a partisan
At the end of the day, Randy, I just sit here and just laugh at these people because they're not serious people. And again, to make excuses and to provide and to sit here and yell and scream about how the IRS, how they're the evil people, when we're talking about billions and billions of dollars that we know for a fact that that the government is being cheated out of, and the people who are carrying this are low to middle income people.
Right. And the Republicans are about protecting the top 1% of this population and ensuring that in any way they can get away with not having to pay taxes. So, of course, the IRS offices have been underemployed and underfunded for quite some time, but it's not something that the Republicans are worried about because they don't want the ultra wealthy to have to worry about being taxed and funding programs that are actually important. I mean, and they made it quite clear there. I can't even believe that they tried to attach the two in a bill and just had the audacity to come up there. But, you know, they depend on our ignorance. They depend on us not paying attention with this trickery that they do.
Go to my iPad here. Joy, check this out, Joy. This is Robert Rice, former Labor Secretary. He said, this data shows that 1.4 million wealthy Americans are evading nearly $66 billion in federal taxes. The 2,000 highest earning tax dodgers alone owe $923 million. Those are the people Republicans are protecting.
That's right. They never waste a crisis or miss an opportunity to line their pockets and to continue bolstering the richest Americans. And not richest people all over who are here and who pay taxes here. There's nothing surprising, although it is shameful. And let me tell you what my fellow panelist was saying here is important. Not only do funds to the IRS increase enforcement for those who are tax cheats, but it also includes equity provisions to make sure those who are poorer Americans who have a very hard time, they can't afford tax lawyers. They have a very hard time navigating the system. It increased money so that they would be able to address those folks who need the help of the government, need to be able to get someone on the line when they need to call. They don't have all of the resources of, say, a Donald Trump. So this is particularly insulting, not just to wealthy, not just to Democrats who may need greater resources, but there are a lot of poor Republicans out there who, when they pick up the phone, they can't get an answer from the IRS, who are being taxed at greater rates than wealthy Republicans who are leading their party. So this is a populist issue. Everyone IRS may not be very popular, but trust me, the Republicans would not be attaching this if it did not line their pockets and steal from yours.
You know, and so people just need to understand, again, the game that is being played here. And the bill, Mustafa, that was passed added about $80 billion over a period, over a number of years to the IRS budget. Now, look, nobody out here likes to pay taxes, but these are the people who supported somebody who bragged about cheating on his taxes. And that's Donald Trump.
Yeah, I mean, he knew the game, and he would manipulate the game all the time. Now, I agree that no one wants to pay taxes, but we also have to understand how incredibly important those taxes are, because whether we're talking about on the federal, the state, or the local, or even the county, that those things help us to make sure that we have strong infrastructures. They make sure that kids get food. They make sure that education, especially public education, is being funded, so forth and so on. So we need to make sure that not only all the lower wealth and middle class folks who often have to carry the burden for this, that the wealthiest individuals who've been able to make huge amounts of money off of folks, that they're also making sure that they are paying their fair share. So we should just make sure that folks understand. And how do you do that? You make sure that you have those agents of the IRS who are actually out there doing enforcement. The president was very clear with folks about the individuals and how much money individuals made who are going to be focused upon. So if you haven't done anything wrong, then it's okay, because those agents or the auditors, they will just go through the numbers. And if you haven't been, trying to get shady, then you don't have anything to worry about. It's those folks who have been shady. It's those who have been skirting around the laws that are there who have to be concerned. So for everyday people, you making $50,000, $35,000, $120,000, you don't have anything to worry about, because that's not what this new set of resources is focused on. It is focused on those high earners.
And just so people understand, there's a guy who used to live in Chicago named Ken Griffin. He is one of the biggest Republican supporters. And this was a piece that was done by ProPublica. Go to my iPad. Henry, so this is what it says. Ken Griffin spent $54 million fighting a tax increase for the rich. Secret IRS data shows it paid off for him. And so if you go through this ProPublica story, what you will see is that Ken Griffin, billionaire. And then it says, in the end, Griffin spent about $18 for every one of the 3.1 million votes against an initiative. And then, and so what happened was that was a consultant for the IRS who actually leaked his tax records. And you see here, it said Griffin averaged an annual income of $1.7 billion from 2013 to 2018, the fourth highest in the country behind only the likes of Bill Gates. And again, it was all about not paying taxes. And those are the people the Republicans want to protect, because those are their donors. And that's why you have these Republican billionaires who are able to fund these super PACs and other efforts, because it's always about the money. I keep telling y'all, in America, if it ain't a money conversation, it ain't American conversation. Gotta go to a break. We'll be right back on Roland Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Don't forget, you're watching on YouTube. Hit that button, folks. Hit that like button. Also, we want you to support us in what we do, folks. We are $290,000 behind where we were last year. Your donations are critically important for us to keep doing the work that we do. Look, this show is 2 hours a day. Faraji Muhammad's show, 2 hours a day. We have other shows on this network, the Black Star Network. We're the only black-owned, black news information digital network. Nobody else does the amount of information that we do every single day. 5 hours of original content every single day. Our goal is to add new shows to the network, but that also takes resources. You've heard me say plenty of times how I am battling the folks in the ad agencies when it comes to these dollars. And so, trust me, I'm dealing with all of them. I'm dealing with OMD, dealing with Group M, dealing with MediaCom. I'm dealing with all of these Dentsu. You know, the people who control, you know, Magna, the people who control the $322 billion being spent every year. But your dollars are critically important as well. What's our goal? 20,000 donors contributing at a minimum $50 each for the year. That comes out to $4.19 a month, 13 cents a day. That's all it is. We don't charge a subscription fee. A lot of people have told me that's what we should do, but I wanted this show to be accessible to everyone, and that's why we do what we do. So you can send your check and money order, P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C., 20037-0196. Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zale, Roland at RolandSMartin.com, Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. And for those of you who give via Cash App, PayPal, Venmo, or Zelle during the next 2 hours, I will personally shout you out right here on the show. Also, be sure to get a copy of my book, White Fear, How the Browning of America is Making White Folks Lose Their Minds. That book, all proceeds go right back into the show. And so you can buy that book, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Target, Books A Million, Bookshop, Chapters, IndieBound, also Ben Bella Books. You can get it at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. And of course, you can download the audio version on Audible. I voiced it as well. Folks, we'll be right back.
I'm Faraji Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture, weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol,
we're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
What's up, everybody? It's your girl, Latasha from the A.
And you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Well, guess what, folks? A federal judge threw out Brett Favre's lawsuit against Shannon Sharpe because of comments that he made about him regarding the scandal in Mississippi. Yeah, this dude right here, of course, has been trying to sit here and he's of course was trying to get money from the state meant for poor people to be used for athletic purposes. Huh, ain't that grand? This was a tweet that Shannon sent out. The United States District Court for the Southern District of Mississippi today dismissed Brett Favre's defamation lawsuit against me. The court found the statements were protected by the First Amendment to the Constitution, thanks to my legal team and their handling of this case. Now, again, Favre was really, really upset, mad, and angry, y'all, because Shannon Sharpe just eviscerated him. Well, it wasn't him, the only person, because folks were highly critical of Favre working with officials in Mississippi to use the money for poor people for athletic purposes. Yeah, this dude made millions of dollars in the NFL, endorsements and things along those lines. And the text messages that were revealed showed that he knew what was going on. He knew what was happening. He knew exactly what was taking place. And guess what? Tate Reeves, who was the governor, did not want this stuff coming up during his election. So what did he do? Oh, let's push these things off till after the election. It's something, Randy, when people like Favre, again, think that you can't have First Amendment rights. Well, they sure love that Second Amendment. They always skip over that first one, though.
They sure do. I don't think the problem was even what he said as much as who said it. Because, you know, Shannon Sharpe was not the only one who said the truth about Brett Favre. I mean, he was not the only one. I honestly believe that, there was some, angst or because it was a Black man saying the truth. I'm gonna just, keep it real, because there were so many people who were commenting on these cases. Sometimes people don't like when Black people speak up. I believe when that ad came out and the woman said to LeBron, just shut up and dribble. I believe that is how America feels about many of our Black athletes. And they become very upset when they have the intelligence to look at something, look at a case, and comment on it. So it wasn't even just about what he said. It was just the fact that he was saying that Sharpe was saying anything. Because Brett knows that what he did was wrong and dirty. I mean, we all saw the text messages. It was some mess going on down there.
Well, and what he did, Joy, he Shannon called Brett Favre a sleazeball. And the judge was like, say, dude, that's called hyperbole.
That's right. I mean, and building on what Randy said, this wasn't just that he was a Black man. He was a Black athlete who's being listened to by fans, right? And his words resonated, and they were true and backed up by Favre's own texts and exchanges. The anger comes from the fact that it rang, right? And it touched people. People heard it when it was said by Mr. Sharpe. So we know what the last segment was about, cheaters and hypocrisy, and this segment is about cheaters and hypocrisy.
Here's what I love right here. In this scathing 12-page opinion, the judge said, quote, no reasonable person listening to the broadcast would think that Favre actually went into the homes of poor people and took their money, that he committed the crime of theft, larceny against any particular poor person in Mississippi. Sharpe's comments were made against the backdrop of long-standing media coverage of Favre's role in the welfare scandal and the state's lawsuit against Favre. Listeners would have recognized Sharpe's statements as rhetorical hyperbole. Boy, judge lays it out right there, Mustafa.
He sure does. This is important. I don't know if folks understand how important what Judge Sterritt did. He actually made sure that if athletes or others are willing to stand up and call out these injustices that folks who have privilege continue to do, if he hadn't done that, if he had ruled in the other way, we know how difficult it is to get many folks, whether it's athletes or artists or a number of other folks, to feel comfortable enough and really just calling out what we see every day with our eyes and what we hear with our ears. So this was incredibly important. The other part of it is that Brett has enough influence that he could reach out to some of his other wealthy friends if he wanted to find financing for a volleyball court. So he had no need to actually dip into a fund that was intended to help people who are in challenging times. So one, I applaud what the judge did, and we also got to continue to call out when individuals who already have wealth and privilege continue to try and, I'll say it this way, pimp our communities or pimp systems that are meant to help our folks.
And you know what? Here's some of those comments with Shannon.
Come on.
I mean, it's just natural. But but you got to be pretty low that you would take from the most underserved to fill your need, or so you can seem philanthropic. Really? Because you know they say, man, you see what Brett did? $5 million for a volleyball arena because his daughter played there. He didn't have to do that. He didn't do nothing. The federal government gave that money, but they're quick to talk about, oh, black and brown people, they be stealing, and then we need to cut out some of this pork and all this. Stop it.
Yep.
The biggest criminals, the people that steal the most, look.
Ha ha! Oh, love it, Randy. He like,
I love it.
Look like him.
I hope that Sharp actually sues him to pay for his legal fees, because I know that he had to incur some cost. And that was a frivolous lawsuit, I believe. And I hope that he charges, gets that money back.
Well,
and let me just say one other thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
Brett Favre has the ability to fight back in the media if he needs to. If he feels like it was wrongly said, he has all the resources in the world. He's not even little old us. This is a man with tremendous reach, financial resources, media resources, that he can correct the record and that everyone would hear him. So this lawsuit was frivolous. Randy is correct. And I hope some resources will return to Mr. Sharp.
And now people need to understand, again, money that was meant for poor people in Mississippi, that's what Brett Favre was accessing. And he knew the money was for those folks. And the governor right now, the governor Tate Reeves, who's trying to get reelected again, he did not want this to be a campaign issue. The trial was supposed to start. He pushed this thing off until after the election. That's another reason why Tate Reeves should go down. And if y'all in Mississippi, y'all should be voting for Presley like crazy over Tate Reeves, because that man is an abomination. All right, folks, when we come back, we're going to stay in Mississippi and talk about this story where, again, a mother, son's missing, files a missing persons report. Cops like, yeah, we don't know. Now we find out that it was an off-duty cop who ran over her son, killed him, and they buried him in a pauper's grave. She recently found out. We'll talk with the family's attorneys. We'll also hear from this family out of Louisiana. Son died, football coach quits, season canceled, and they're like, where's the justice for our son? We'll discuss that as well. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us.
We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it.
This is about covering us.
Invest in black-owned media.
Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks.
We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind $100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible.
Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
On the next Get Wealthy with me, Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, are you trying to figure out how to earn more revenue in your business during these volatile times? Learn how to tap into the largest marketplace in the world through government contracting. Our next guest, Akia Hardnett, will be sharing how you can get wealthy through government contracting.
We got a young lady, government assistance to government contracts. She literally was on government assistance when she came to us, and in less than a year, she has been winning multiple government contracts, and it has changed the trajectory of her family.
That's right here, only on Black Star Network.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kim Coles.
Hey, I'm Donnie Simpson.
Yo, it's your man Deion Cole from Blackish, and you watch
Roland Martin, Unfiltered.
Imagine sending your son to college to play football, but ends up dying, possibly by his roommate, a roommate whom he reported to his coach about pointing a gun at him days before being killed. That happened to a Texas family and their son, Ronnie Caldwell Jr., who was attending Northwestern State University in Natchitoches, Louisiana. Ronnie's parents say his death could have been prevented. Troy Pradia and Jonathan Cox from the Cox Pradia law firm represent the Caldwell family. They now join from Houston. All right, so gentlemen, what actually happened here? When did this take place? What went on there in this Louisiana? Was this a dormitory? Was this an off-campus apartment? What happened?
Well, Roland, on October the 9th, Ronnie Caldwell Jr. reached out to his father and said, hey, my roommate pulled a weapon on me. Can you please call Coach Brad Laird to have me put in another apartment in the same complex? So Ronnie Caldwell Sr. called Coach Brad Laird and, text Coach Brad Laird, and Brad Laird responded and said that he would move Ronnie Caldwell Jr. 3 days later, no action by Coach Brad Laird. The roommate shot and killed Ronnie Caldwell Jr.
Okay, so shot and killed him. What happened to the roommate?
The roommate was arrested for drug possession and gun charges. The case is still under investigation on the murder charge. So, we're not going to state who killed them. We're going to let the police decide that in the district attorney's office. And so we're waiting on that investigation to be complete.
Okay, but so what I'm saying, so was the roommate arrested?
Arrested not for murder, but for weapons charges and drug possession.
Okay. What then happened? He said he went to the coach. Was that verbal? Was that written? Was that text? Do you have anything from Ronnie that shows that he did indeed reach out to the coach about this issue?
So, Roland, this is Jonathan Cox here, Cox Pradia Law Firm. We've been kind of conducting our own investigation. So what we have discovered is that in addition to Ronnie calling his father and letting him know about the situation with his roommate, he had also been going to the apartment complex saying that he wanted to be moved. What we have here, Roland, is an apartment complex that is marketed to be a student housing facility, but they also lease to non-students. And so Ronnie was with a roommate in an apartment. He had a mold issue, and they moved him to an apartment with a non-student. And he was in there probably 3 to 4 months before his death. And during that whole time, he had made complaints to the apartment complex. He wanted to move out of that apartment complex. The guy was just somebody who wasn't like-minded as him. And it ultimately ended up in this situation. And once the report was made to the coach, they still didn't do anything. And 3 days later, he was dead.
Again, head coach Brad Laird resigned. Ronnie's father sent a text message to the coach saying that he needed help getting Ronnie moved, saying that the roommate, Josh McIntosh, pulled a gun on him. As you said, McIntosh was arrested for possession of a firearm in the presence of a controlled dangerous substance. Also, another player, Maurice Campbell II, he was also arrested for obstruction of justice, possession of marijuana with the intent to distribute, and possession of a firearm in the presence of a controlled dangerous substance. Now, how long, so Ronnie gets shot. How long does it take for paramedics to arrive at this apartment?
Well, we have different reports. Some say 10 minutes, somebody said an hour. We're not really sure. We need to get the reports from the ambulance service. So we won't speculate about that. We have an investigator down there on the ground, and we're just still trying to find out about that. So we're not really sure whether it was 10 minutes or whether it was 30 minutes or whether it was an hour.
So what's weird to me is, Coach Laird resigns, and this is a statement that he put out. It's actually sort of strange to me. He says, due to the loss of Ronnie and the emotional burden it has caused, I don't feel I can give my all to these players or this program. Any coach would tell you that their players become like family. So the loss of Ronnie was like losing a son. I love this program and this university, and I know it persevere and move forward with the competitive spirit that is at the core of our DNA. I'm sorry, I'm confused here. You're the head coach. Season's canceled. You bail out, and now the players and everyone else, they're sort of like, what do we do now? And you're saying, oh, I just don't know how it can go on?
Yeah, Roland, what was disturbing about this is up until the time that he resigned, the narrative was out there that it was just a random shooting at a school between two black kids, and there was no involvement with the school. But once he resigned, the family was really upset about that because they knew that there was more to this story. They had called the school, called the coach. The coach said that he was going to do something about it, and he never did. But that was never reported in any of the news outlets after Ronnie was killed. And it wasn't brought out until we called the press conference the day after the coach resigned. And so it appears that they were trying to sweep this under the rug and have him resign and distance themselves away from Coach Laird.
Wow. Well, certainly more details need to come out. We await for those details. We await for the university also to speak to this. Now, you have already filed, even though the criminal case is still moving forward, you filed a lawsuit against the university?
So we have not filed yet, Roland. What we're doing, we're working in conjunction with a Louisiana law firm, a multi-jurisdictional law firm, Daniel Williams law firm, and we are in the process of preparing that suit. We expect to have this suit filed in the next couple of days.
Okay. Gentlemen, we appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Man, that has got to be tough there, Joy. Again, if you're a parent, your son reaches out, says, hey, my roommate pulls a gun on me. You're the father. You reach out to the head coach. Nothing happens. He's not moved. Nothing changes. And next thing you know, as this story says, the father gets a phone call at 2:07 a.m. saying your son is dead.
It's tragic. My stepson is a sophomore at the University of Chicago, and I cannot imagine what that would feel like, what that would be like. The fact that he was even living with someone who wasn't a student, I'm not sure how that happened, and was also on the team. I think more details need to be there. And I can't help but feel like there is a current here that young men, especially when they're young Black men, that they are superhuman, older than they actually are. He might have been an adult on paper, but he was young. This was, if he were a white girl, we would have no problem saying she was, almost a child, right? Barely an adult. This young man was young, and he called out for help from his parents who did the right thing, who went to the coach. And he did not get that assistance. And the school has something to answer for there. It's tragic, tragic.
Also goes to show what we are dealing with when we talk about guns in this society, Mustafa. Go to my iPad. This is a story out of New York where a New York City father and his stepson, two brothers, they are dead because one of their neighbors was complaining about the noise. And what is so stunning here is that again, the neighbor was, knocking on the door. Then the father, who's a weightlifter, comes out holding a pair of scissors. They have an altercation, and reading the story was also interesting that the wife came out, and then when the stepfather walks out, the wife tries to stop him from walking out of the house, out of the apartment, but he pushes her away. Then when he confronts the gentleman here, what then happens is guy pulls a gun out, the father blows the guy off and turns his back on him. The guy then fires shots into him. Then he fires 2 shots into the stepson. And then as the father is crawling to his doorway, the guy walks up to him and shoots him execution style. And this goes to, again, and I say this all the time, I don't care what anybody says, people act totally different when they've got a gun in their possession. They are the biggest tough guy. All of a sudden, they are ready to do damage. This always happens, Mustafa. I don't care what anybody says. I fundamentally believe that a person acts completely different and far more rational when they do not have a weapon as compared to that false sense of insecurity, entitlement, and bravado when they do have a gun.
Oh, without a doubt. And we live in a society here in the United States where we have more guns than we have people. The numbers are almost at 400 million guns. Those are the guns that folks know about that exist inside of this country. So when you have the mix of both guns and then you have all these stressors that people are dealing with, you just have this mix where folks just want to pull on folks. And not only did the father get shot, but also there was another person that got shot. This individual, I watched the video. I try to stay away from that stuff, but it caught my attention. He put multiple shots into folks. And he also made sure that he had headshots on folks.
Yep.
So he was serious about ending people's lives. And now his life, he's actually going to end up in prison because whether he gets away with the father that he shot, he's definitely not going to get away with the other individual who made no advances toward him. But it all comes back to the fact that we continue to flood our communities with these weapons. Instead of folks figuring out ways to de-escalate, step back for a second, be like, yo, let's talk about this later, walk away. And unfortunately, whether it's we're watching movies all the time where people are getting shot, we got all these other things that make it seem like it's not real. But as soon as you pull that trigger, the reality becomes that somebody is going to get hurt or somebody's going to lose their life. And one of the reasons also is that we won't move forward on significant gun legislation. We continue, it goes back to what we've been talking about all day. We got these folks on Capitol Hill who don't care about everyday people, are willing to sacrifice people because they continue to get all this money from the gun lobby and all these other types of places. And we've just got to, one, utilize the power of our vote to change this dynamic, but we also have to make sure that we're doing some work in our communities. I used to work for an organization called Root Inc., reaching out to others together. We specifically focused on trying to de-escalate and trying to mitigate these gun violence situations that continue to go on. And we just don't have enough resources that go to those types of organizations.
And guess who's real quiet, Randy? The gun people and the pro-lifers.
Always.
I'm sorry, the so-called pro-lifers.
Right, always. I mean, whenever we're involved, you don't hear a whole lot from them. They speak up only when it serves their contingency. I really just want to go back to about what Joy was saying, that our Black young men, our Black men are not seen as people, and people who need help. I mean, that's what really strikes me about this. I have not a doubt in my mind that if a young 20-year-old white girl had called and said that her roommate had pulled a weapon on her, she would have been moved that day right? Or that roommate would have been moved out. I mean, this is not something, he didn't complain and say he's dirty. He didn't complain and say he plays his music too loud. He said this person has pulled a weapon on me. That child was asking for help and received none. And I believe it is because people are desensitized to violence within the Black community and believe that we are supposed to be able to handle it. It's no big deal for him. You know, he probably comes from a place that he's used to that type of stuff. And that is the part that is really scary to me about that case.
Indeed, indeed. All right, folks, hold tight 1 second. I got to go to a break. We come back. More on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Top of the hour, we'll talk about what's happening in Israel and Gaza. President Biden's approval rating among Arab Americans drops 42 points. We'll discuss that. Plus, in the next hour, we'll talk with Ben Crump about the case out of Mississippi. Black woman looking for her son. He got hit by a former cop. They never said anything to her. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered right here on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
Next on the Black Table with me, Craig Carr. Immigrants lured off Texas streets and shipped to places like Martha's Vineyard and Washington, D.C. Believe it or not, we've seen it all before.
You people in the North, you're so sympathetic to Black people, you take them.
60 years ago, they called it the reverse freedom rides. Back then, Southern governors shipped Black people north with the false promise of jobs and a better life. It's a part of a well-known playbook being brought back to life. So what's next? That's next on the Black Table, a conversation with Dr. Gerald Horne about this issue of the reverse freedom rides, right here on the Black Star Network.
I'm Dee Barnes, and next on The Frequency, we talk to award-winning screenwriter and director Chanel Dupree about her film, You Think You're Grown, the adultification of young Black girls. This is a conversation that all women can relate to.
This woman was like, oh my God, you know, I went through this when I was a kid. She wore something, it was a maxi dress, but the way it fit on her body, this female teacher thought that she looked too grown and spun her around in front of a male teacher and said, do you think she looks grown, right?
Oh my God. So that's next time on The Frequency on the Black Star Network.
Hey, what's up? It's Sammy Roman.
Hey, it's John Murray, the executive producer of the new Sherry Shepherd Talk Show.
It's me, Sherry Shepherd, and you know what you're watching, Roland Martin Unfiltered.
All right, folks, Raheem White left his Philadelphia home on October 25th and has not been seen or heard from since. The 14-year-old is 5 feet 7 inches tall, weighs 140 pounds, with black dreadlock hair and brown eyes. Raheem was last seen wearing all black clothing. Anyone with information about Raheem White is asked to call the Philadelphia Police Department's Southwest Detective Division at 215-686-3183, 215-686-3183. An Alabama man is facing federal charges for making threats against a Georgia prosecutor and a sheriff related to an investigation into Donald Trump. Arthur Ray Hansen II of Huntsville allegedly left threatening voicemails for Fulton County DA Fonnie Willis and Fulton County Sheriff Pat Labatt on August 6th. In part of the message for Ms. Willis, Mr. Hansen is reported to have said, when you charge Trump on that fourth indictment, anytime you're alone, be looking over your shoulder. Prosecutors say Hansen called the Fulton County government customer service line about a week before the indictment was returned. Hansen is scheduled to be formally arraigned in Alabama on November 13th. Harris is not the first person to be charged over alleged threats made concerning Trump's criminal case. A Texas woman was arrested in August for threatening to kill a member of Congress and the federal judge overseeing Trump's criminal case in Washington. Is it me or are these people literally out of their damn minds, Mustafa?
I don't know if they're out their minds, but I'll tell you what, you want to talk about looking over your shoulder. Wait till you spend some time in the Georgia State Penitentiary. I guarantee you'll be looking over your shoulder then. I ain't going to say what you're looking back at, but I think you can understand that dynamic. Now, you know, Roland, I don't know anymore if they're crazy, because some of these folks truly believe that they can say and do anything, especially to a black person. And they're you know, they just wrong. And luckily, you have folks there in Georgia who are not going to take it. And they are going to use every letter of the law to make sure that when you want to act up and you want to act crazy, and that if you break the law, that you get the opportunity to also pay for your words and your deeds and your actions.
Oh, they're crazy in the sense, Joy, they can trace your damn line, and then you leave it. What? And he probably was so dumb, Joy, he probably left his number.
Oh, for sure. He wants people to know that he did this. This gives him cred. I don't know where, but someplace that I'm not invited to the party. You know, I'm careful about the word crazy because I don't want them getting any excuses for this behavior. But friends, you can disagree, but you cannot pose credible threats to folks, especially officials in the line of duty. And frankly, we've seen people actually be harmed, judges actually be killed, prosecutors actually be targeted. So, you know, and forget this Hansen guy is a problem. But if you are a politician, if you're Donald Trump, if you're an elected leader of any kind, you have to be careful about what you say, because you are inspiring your supporters to do outrageous things and illegal things and perhaps violent and murderous things. So, you know, these are serious times we live in, and you just can't say everything.
They gonna learn real quick, Randy. What I don't understand is all these people. How do these people keep screwing up their life for that orange fool who don't give a damn about them? I keep saying, this broke fool probably, he couldn't even walk into the Trump Hotel or Mar-a-Lago. He couldn't even, they wouldn't let his broke ass drive by.
Oh, no. Oh, no. You know, Trump doesn't do broke. He does not do broke, right? He never has, but they really feel as if that he is for them, for the people. But let's just be honest. I mean, when you look at who supports him vastly, these are not the geniuses of the world. The people who are following him blindly and protecting him are not the geniuses of the world. And the thing that they don't seem to realize is that while Trump incites some of this behavior, he has 24-hour security. They don't. And clearly, again, not bright, because who calls customer service and starts threatening people? I mean, they didn't even try to hide it. Like, I mean, it's just, you almost feel embarrassed for how ignorant these people are.
No, I don't. Sorry.
I don't.
Sorry, I don't.
Yeah.
I don't feel embarrassed. I relish them going to jail. Every time one of these January 6 people gets convicted and then they go to court and they start crying about how their life is ruined, I then go, sorry, it's above me now.
Yes, it's above me now.
It's above me now. So I don't mind any of them with these long prison sentences. In fact, I kind of like it because now all of a sudden, the nutcases in Congress on the right, now they care about victims' rights. Now they care about rehabilitation in prison. So hooray to more of these MAGA fools going to jail. Hillary Clinton was right. They're deplorables. Yep, I said it. All right, folks, when we come back, we're going to talk about what's happening in Israel and Gaza. Israel's been moving forward with their ground attack, getting a lot of criticism today for the bombing of a hospital in Gaza. We're seeing more the death toll just dramatically increase. We'll talk with award-winning journalist Rula Jebreal next, right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
On the next Get Wealthy with me, Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, are you trying to figure out how to earn more revenue in your business during these volatile times? Learn how to tap into the largest marketplace in the world through government contracting. Our next guest, Akia Hardnett, will be sharing how you can get wealthy through government contracting.
We've got a young lady, government assistance to government contracts. She literally was on government assistance when she came to us, and in less than a year, she has been winning multiple government contracts, and it has changed the trajectory of her family.
That's right here, only on Black Star Network.
Next on the Black Table with me, Craig Carr. Immigrants lured off Texas streets and shipped to places like Martha's Vineyard and Washington, D.C. Believe it or not, we've seen it all before.
You people in the North, you're so sympathetic to black people, you take them.
60 years ago, they called it the reverse freedom rides. Back then, Southern governors shipped black people north with the false promise of jobs and a better life. It's a part of a well-known playbook being brought back to life. So what's next? That's next on the Black Table, a conversation with Dr. Gerald Horn about this issue of the reverse freedom rides, right here on the Black Star Network.
No, I see.
Place to be, got kicked out your mama's university, creator and executive producer of Fat Tuesdays, an air hip-hop comedy. But right now I'm rolling with Roland Martin, unfiltered, uncut, unplugged, and undamn believable. You hear me?
It's been 25 days since the Israel-Hamas war began. Thousands have been killed, injured, and displaced. Israel's subsequent strike against the Hamas-controlled Gaza Strip have FBI Director Chris Wray issuing a warning about lone wolf-style assailants targeting Western nations.
Discussions about the most pressing national security threats that what we face and what we're doing to tackle them are always important, but it seems especially well-timed this year with the dangerous implications the very fluid situation in the Middle East has for our homeland security. The reality is that the terrorism threat has been elevated throughout 2023, but the ongoing war in the Middle East has raised the threat of an attack against Americans in the United States to a whole nother level. Since the horrific terrorist attacks committed by Hamas against innocent people in Israel a few weeks ago, we've been working around the clock to support our partners there and to protect Americans here at home. We assess that the actions of Hamas and its allies will serve as an inspiration, the likes of which we haven't seen since ISIS launched its so-called caliphate several years ago. In just the past few weeks, multiple foreign terrorist organizations have called for attacks against Americans and the West. Al-Qaeda issued its most specific call to attack the United States in the last 5 years. ISIS urged its followers to target Jewish communities in the United States and Europe. Hezbollah has publicly expressed its support for Hamas and threatened to attack U.S. interests in the Middle East. And we've seen an increase in attacks on U.S. military bases overseas carried out by militia groups backed by Iran. Here in the United States, our most immediate concern is that violent extremists, individuals or small groups, will draw inspiration from the events in the Middle East to carry out attacks against Americans going about their daily lives. That includes not just homegrown violent extremists inspired by a foreign terrorist organization, but also domestic violent extremists targeting Jewish or Muslim communities. We've already seen that with the individual we arrested last week in Houston, who'd been studying how to build bombs and posted online about his support for killing Jews. And with the tragic killing of a 6-year-old Muslim boy in Illinois in what we're investigating as a federal hate crime. But as I said a few moments ago, on top of the homegrown violent extremists and domestic violent extremist threat, we also cannot and do not discount the possibility that Hamas or another foreign terrorist organization may exploit the current conflict to conduct attacks here on our own soil.
Award-winning journalist Rula Jebreal believes Israel's war could turn into another U.S. war in the Middle East. She joins us now from New York. Rula, glad to have you. We were already seeing Yemen get involved now, and then we're seeing other countries refusing Palestinian refugees. Your assessment as we sit now, almost a month after this started?
Well, thank you for having me. First of all, what we learned from the war on terror, 20 years war on terror that America led, where the United States spent $8 trillion, I believe, thousands of Americans perished, 600 Iraqis. Again, we see the Taliban back in power. They are in charge of Afghanistan. And we see that the result of that failed war, that Iran controls Iraq. Today, the Iranians basically declared war on the United States through their proxies in Yemen, who have missiles, cruise missiles, who have drones, and can attack the United States at any moment. But also we learn that you cannot kill your way to defeating an ideology. You can actually defeat the ideology if you address the underlying crisis that feeds it. Killing thousands of civilians, children, indiscriminate bombing, like Israel is doing, actually strengthening that ideology. And we've seen this over and again. Every time the United States bombed a country or a city, remember Fallujah, remember Mosul, or the images of Abu Ghraib, we've seen a peak of radicalization because they feed on desperation. And I think it's made very clear by people who led the war on terror, General Petraeus and others, that the only strategy to weaken, defeat the ideology is by ending the military occupation, ending the segregation and discrimination of the Sunni in Iraq or elsewhere, and even the Israeli generals and people in charge of the security apparatus, like Ami Ayalon, who was in charge of the Israel, who's Chris Wray of America, in charge of the FBI of the Israel. He said, without a Palestinian state, absent a Palestinian state, we will be in forever wars. That is the driver, the main driver behind the violence.
What do you say when critics, those who oppose your position, when they say, well, if Hamas does not orchestrate this attack on October 7th, none of this is happening?
Well, that's, I'm not sure I can say this word, but clearly they don't understand what they're talking about, and that's BS. Why? Because the war, we've been in a conflict, Israel-Palestine, for 70 years. There's been a military occupation of the Palestinian people in East Jerusalem, in West Bank, and in Gaza for the last 57 years. Gaza itself have been blockaded completely and considered under occupation still by the Israelis for the last 16 years. We had 5 wars. I mean, either I don't know if they were sleeping or dreaming or having cocktail, but this is a reality that we have on the ground. And for 56 years, 7 years almost, Israelis decided and told the world that the only way they could feel safe if Palestinians are on their knees, are under military occupation, behind walls, in cages, without any rights, human rights, civil rights, political rights whatsoever, systematically oppressed and violated in every level of their life. I mean, the level, while we're talking about Gaza, rightly so, if you look at the occupied territory of, the West Bank, where Hamas doesn't exist, in the last week only, 120 Palestinians were killed. We've seen, pictures and videos of Abu Ghraib-style torture made by very fanatical, radical settlers who come from New Zealand and Australia and the United States and Brooklyn, and they feel more entitled to the land, and they want to steal the land and depopulate the population because they have an agenda with God. They think that God told them this is their land, and they need to take it. So we're focusing on the fanaticism and the terrorists that Hamas is, engaged in, but we're also neglecting the fanaticism, the ethno-religious project of exclusion and purity led by those in the West Bank, and they elected their government. I mean, the far-right government of Bibi Netanyahu have a terrorist, a convicted terrorist that is Ben-Gvir, who his whole agenda is to ethnically erase Palestinians. They even call for a second Nakba, which is the extermination of Palestinians, in parliament. We're not dealing with normal people. We're dealing with a far-right extremist government that believe that God told them the entirety of the land should be theirs and there should be no Palestinians.
You're Palestinian. You were born in Israel. You've seen this up close and personal. We are seeing significant protest around the country. I had Malcolm Nance on the show yesterday, and he was questioned about this notion that some people suggested, well, if you are protesting for the Palestinians, that you are anti-Semitic. And you hear this. You hear this where people are like, well, if you're on the Palestinian side, you're on the side of Hamas, as opposed to being on the side of the Palestinian people. Then you have folks out here. There's a number of people who are Jewish who've been protesting, who say Netanyahu has to go. You see President Biden, his position that he's taken to stand with Israel is costing him significantly among Arab Americans, especially young folks as well. And so, looking at all of this, what does a person say? What does a person do? Because I know a lot of people who are like, man, you know what? I don't want to say anything because, hell, I'm afraid of getting fired and losing my job depending upon what I say.
So I just want to emphasize that African Americans were considered subhuman, and a lot of people went to the streets and were killed for advocating for their equal rights, for their right to live as free men and women, treated equally with dignity in this society. Palestinians, millions of us who are whether Palestinians in the West Bank or Gaza and elsewhere, and that's the overwhelming majority. That's what we want. Freedom, end of the occupation, dignity, not charity. We would like to live like you and like your children and like many Americans, as not under the boot of a military dictatorship. We've been trying to forge a future for our children. I lived all my life under military occupation. I was raised in an orphanage. The orphanage was established in 1948 by a woman who collected children who were the survivor of a massacre at Deir Yassin. The oldest one was 8 years old. The youngest one was 1 year old. They always told me that how their homes were blown up, how their families were butchered and tortured and massacred, how their lands were stolen, how they became refugees in their own land, traumatized, terrorized. So when I look at their aspiration to live in a world that is free of fear, of hatred, of racism, is that not legitimate? Is that not legitimate? And we need to be very clear about real anti-Semitism, and I believe Donald Trump is anti-Semitic, but he's pro-Bibi. When he says that American Jews, are disloyal to Israel, that's anti-Semitism. When he invited Nick Fuentes and these real anti-Semites, that's anti-Semitism. It's the hatred of Jews because they are Jews. But to criticize Israel policies, that is not anti-Semitism. To criticize Zionism, which is the ideology of the government, that's not anti-Semitism. As you know, there's a lot of interracial, interreligious marriages. There's a lot of people like Sarah Bashi and others who are married to Palestinians. They are Jews. The main issue is an issue of justice, is an issue of rights and self-determination and end of the subjugation. It's not an issue of religion. And Bibi yesterday, Netanyahu tried to put religion in the midst, and he talked about the Bible, with the Bible. When your agenda is with God, then you cannot question, the policies. That is a very dangerous promise when it becomes about a holy war between him and Iran. This legitimizes actually the extremists, which their narrative is this is a holy war. It's not a holy war. It's very simple. Do we all, as human beings in the 21st century, deserve to be free, deserve equal rights, or we deserve, as brown, black Palestinians, people from the global south, do we deserve, equal rights? But not only that, do we deserve international law and the protection under international law, or Israel is above the law? These are the questions that are being asked. And I think America has to decide, are we for, against military occupation when Russia does it, but we are for military occupation when Israel does it? Are we, as Americans, the United States, do you stand for freedom for Ukrainians, but not for Palestinians? These are the heart of the issues when it comes to double standards, and which undermine the whole promise of Joe Biden and his administration of rule-based international order. I mean, today I received a text message from a professor of international affairs, one of the best in the Middle East. He tweeted saying, I apologize to my student. I taught them international law. Clearly, America and Europe and the UK doesn't think it applies to us, because in their eyes, we're still under colonial rule. We're still the subject, the subhuman, the animal. And it made me cry and weep, because you're losing a generation of people who believe in America's ideals and what America offers: freedom, democracy, dignity, opportunity.
Oh, hold tight 1 second. Going to break. We come back. My panel has some questions for you as well, Rula. Folks, we're talking about Israel-Gaza. A lot of people are talking about this here all over social media. And again, our goal is to provide you as much information as possible so you have a better understanding of what is really taking place in that part of the world. And also, yes, we'll be talking in the next several days about also other conflicts happening on the African continent, where thousands of Africans are also dying in various disputes, especially in places like the Congo. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Please support us in what we do. I want to thank all the folks who have been contributing while we are live. Kathleen Moore, Brother Robert Carter, Janae, Fayetta Sawyer, Sammy Sawyers Jr. Go ahead and pull the graphic up. Maya Cameron, Hadiria Omar, Larnell Farmer, Norman K. Holmes, Damon Blissett, Patricia Dowtry, Victor Williams. Thank you so very much. Also, Clanford Johnson, Alfonso Rodriguez. All of you are contributing. Folks, if you want to join our Bring the Funk fan club, do so by sending your check and money order, P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C., 20037-0196. Cash App, $RM Unfiltered, PayPal, R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered, Zelle. Roland at RolandSMartin.com, Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. We'll be right back.
I'm Dee Barnes, and next on The Frequency, we talk to award-winning screenwriter and director Chanel Dupree about her film, You Think You're Grown, the adultification of young Black girls. This is a conversation that all women can relate to.
This woman was like, oh my God, you know, I went through this when I was a kid. She wore something, it was a maxi dress, but the way it fit on her body, this female teacher thought that she looked too grown and spun her around in front of a male teacher and said, do you think she looks grown, right?
Oh my God. So that's next time on The Frequency on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind $100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
Hey, what's up, y'all? I'm Devon Franklin. It is always a pleasure to be in the house. You are watching Roland Martin Unfiltered. Stay right here.
All right, folks, welcome back to Roland Martin Unfiltered. We're talking with award-winning journalist Rula Jebreal about what's happening with this Israel-Gaza war. Let's start with my panel. First off, Mustafa Santiago Ali, your question for Rula.
Yeah, well, Sister Jebreal, thank you for being here with us. You know, I don't think that folks actually understand the significance of how much death and carnage is happening. You had mentioned before about both the Iraq war and the Afghanistan war. We had 7,000 soldiers who lost their lives over, about 18-year time period. And now we've had about 8,000 folks, who have lost their lives in Gaza. We, of course, have the 1,400 that were there in Israel. Can you really help people to understand? And then, of course, all the babies and children who have lost their lives. Can you help folks to really understand what's actually happening on the ground? Because they turn on, news shows and they really probably don't get a flavor.
So before the war, 90% of Palestinians didn't have in Gaza, and Gaza, there's 2.2 million Palestinians who live there. 90% didn't have access to water before the war. Before the war, 50% of them were under poverty line, didn't have access to proper food. With this war, they are now starving, dying of starvation. I get text message of people telling me that they don't know what to feed their children, that they have to decide whether to kill the cat or not. This is the human condition today in Gaza. Children are consuming water unfit for human consumption, contaminated water. People in the hospitals, the Shifa hospital that Netanyahu threatened to bomb because he conveyed that there's some kind of tunnels underneath it. And by the way, the UNRWA, the agency, refugee agency, and a lot of doctors who worked there for 16 years, international doctors, said they never seen any proof of that, that this is not the first time that Israel made that claim. This is the 8th time that made that claim. And again, in that hospital, they don't have any more anesthesia. They're amputating people without anesthesia. Women are giving birth, cesarean operations without anesthesia. This is the incredible condition. And every hospital and every healthcare facility is collapsing. We are watching a humanitarian catastrophe of which we never seen anything like this in the history of Israel-Palestine and in the history of the Middle East. I testified before the European Parliament about the humanitarian catastrophe in Yemen in 2018, and that was a tragedy beyond, but it was a span of years. In the span of 3 weeks, Israel killed around 8,000 Palestinians, of which 3,500 children, and then we have around 2,000 bodies under the rubble that nobody can recover because they're being shelled and carpet bombed continuously. We've seen that today they attacked the refugee camp, a refugee camp. Let me reiterate that, a refugee camp. The Jabalia refugee camp bombarded that, dropped a 1-ton bomb. They dropped, by the way, 7,000 bombs and missiles, which is the same amount that America used in Afghanistan and Iraq combined in years, in a very small strip of land, heavily populated, and it's only 45 kilometers. And the mass atrocity that are being committed today, that we are witnessing in real time, is the direct product of decade-long Israeli impunity provided by the UK, the US, and Europe, and for decade-long dehumanization of Palestinians in mainstream media, the exclusion of voices. I am so blessed and lucky to be here, but this is the only time my humanity is not questioned. This is the only time I don't have to defend our existence.
This is a protest that took place in London. We're seeing this all across the world, Rula. And what's also interesting is that you have the efforts trying to shut down Al Jazeera. Even the United States has said, hey, has gone to the Qatari government saying, hey, can Al Jazeera pull back? You have some places that literally are banning pro-Palestinian protest.
Exactly, and the tragedy that, even though we have really, the media is very one-sided, as we know, except, small pockets, people don't believe them anymore. The overwhelming majority of the global South, the brown and black world, does not believe the lies. They didn't believe it about the WMD in Iraq, and they don't believe it now. They don't believe that a nuclear state power, which is Israel, cannot do anything except murdering Palestinians. They cannot believe, they understand that it's about land, but also they understand the hypocrisy of the Western democracy when they blame Russia for committing crimes, and then when it comes to Israel, they look the other way and it's like, never mind, actually enable it and bankroll it. It was astonishing yesterday when I believe the State Department released a statement and a video saying we're helping Gaza. They send 40 trucks to Gaza. They need 500 a day. They sent 45 trucks and they were bragging about it. But you know what else they send? $14 billion in armament to Israel. So they are contributing and bombing Palestinians, but then they send some charity and little food to those who are being bombed. I mean, and people, that's why people are angry. Israelis themselves are in the streets. Our Jewish brother and sisters are all over the world in the streets saying enough is enough. We need a political solution. They're even telling us, the survivor, our dead babies that were butchered by Hamas, which is a real atrocity and a war crime, cannot be answered with more atrocities and war crimes. That will not bring back our babies. These are survivors. Their voices are important to listen to. People who negotiated with Hamas on behalf of the Israeli government, the current Israeli government, like Baskin, who was an advisor to the Israeli government of Bibi Netanyahu, are telling us that the prime minister enabled and strengthened Hamas by negotiating with them, giving them money. There's a direct quote from Bibi Netanyahu himself who said, anybody that want to thwart a Palestinian state need to support Hamas, finance Hamas, because then we can use Hamas as a scarecrow and say, well, we don't have a partner. Hamas is an asset. Those are the words of the prime minister today, who released the leader of Hamas, who is the architect of the terrorist attack. In 2011, Yahya Sinwar, the leader of Hamas in Gaza, was released by Bibi Netanyahu under the order of Bibi Netanyahu in 2011. He didn't kill an Israeli then. He killed Palestinians. Now he led this attack, and this is the same guy that Bibi Netanyahu thought he was an asset.
Got about 3 minutes left. I got two questions. Let me go to Randy Bryant. Randy, go.
I just wanted to thank you for being here and speaking so eloquently and passionately to us about this. I wanted to ask you, what role do you think that social media has been playing? Because I feel as if before we always just trusted our government and our news sources to tell us the truth. But now we have so much information coming from individuals so now we're seeing the truth and able to make different decisions. So what is your opinion about the role it has played?
I think it's huge. It's huge. It's huge. Look, I look at the struggle of African Americans, and I'm inspired by what, people in South Africa and people who basically, led the civil rights movement in this country without social media. It took years, hundreds of years. Today, we have the news in zero time, and we don't trust the same people who sold us the lies about the Iraq War, who sold us many other lies. And we question their truth. So when Israel says we never bombed a hospital, well, let an international investigation decide. And then they tell you, oh, no, we don't want an international team to investigate. But then we remember they killed our colleague, Shireen Abu Akleh, last year. They lied about it, and then they confirmed it 6 months after. They bombed the headquarters of the UN in Lebanon, 1996, killing 110 people. They lied about it. And then guess what? The United Nations determined that Israel did it. So people don't trust governments anymore for good reasons.
Thank you.
Joy, go ahead.
Yeah. I hope everyone will watch this segment. I've learned a lot. I think many of us are still learning about this. Even those who know more history are still learning. What do you want from the American people? What do you want them to do? If you could speak to them right now, the American voter, what do you need them to do?
Please ask the government to stop the killing of children. Please pressure Joe Biden and Democrats to stop the murder and the slaughterhouse in Gaza. Gaza is an open-air prison. Now it's becoming a cemetery for children, a slaughterhouse, a carnage. Nobody will be safe. No Israeli will be saved if more Gazans and more civilians and more children die. President Biden might lose these elections because he can alienate Democrats, progressives, Latino and brown and black and Arabs and Muslims who look at his policy and they're the continuation of Trump policies. We need to wake up, especially the Democrats, and pressure people so this carnage can end and we can all be free. None of us is safe or free until we're all free.
Rula Jebreal, I always appreciate you joining us here on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Thanks a bunch. Folks, when we come back, we'll talk with attorney Ben Crump and the family of a Mississippi man missing. And now the family finds out that he was run over by a off-duty cop and they never said a word. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds. There's a name
angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol. We've seen
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
Mr. Love King of R&B, Raheem Devon.
It's me, Sherry Shepard, and you know what you're watching.
You're watching Roland Martin, Unfiltered.
Folks, the story of Mississippi is unbelievable. It is strange. It is astounding. And you're sitting here going, how in the hell does this actually happen? So, a mother in Jackson, Mississippi reported her child missing to the police. They go, sorry, can't help you. Then she finds out that an off-duty Jackson police officer struck and killed her son, Dexter Wade, as he was crossing a highway, leaving his mother's home in March. The Hinds County Coroner's Office identified him using fingerprints and information from prescribed medication police found at the scene. Police claim they couldn't reach Wade's mother. Betterstein Wade Robinson left his body, and this is crazy, y'all. They left his body unclaimed at the morgue for months before burying him in an unmarked grave on the Hinds County Penal Farm. Joining me now is civil rights attorney Ben Crump and Betterstein Wade Robinson, Dexter's mom. First of all, I am sorry for your loss. Your son went missing in March. When did you find out what happened to him and where he was?
I found out in August the 24th. They called me about 11 o'clock, and the detective said, I found your son. And I went to say, well, she said, another detective, Gerard, gonna come out and tell you, what happened. So he called me about 4. He made it there around 5:30 or something, 6. And he said, I'm sorry. Your son is deceased. And I started crying.
He went. I'm confused. He went missing in March. When did you file a missing persons report?
I filed a missing person report in March the 14th.
So you literally filed a missing persons report in March?
Yes.
And they identified who he was?
Yes.
So we're not talking about, let's just be clear, we're not talking about the New York City Police Department, the Houston Police Department. We're not talking about a very large city. And I'm not demeaning Jackson, but if there's a body in the morgue and has been actually identified, and then they claim, oh, they couldn't reach you, but you filed the missing persons report, which meant your information was right there. You had to put it on a sheet of paper, name, phone number, email, address, all that stuff.
Yes.
They knew who he was, Roland, on the first day.
Say it again?
They knew his identification on March 5th when they first hit and killed him.
And so, all right, so this is what I need to understand. Okay. So he gets hit by an off-duty police officer. What have they actually said to you to explain this? I mean, this is just beyond, for me, explanation.
Well, they haven't even came to me and said anything. The only thing they did was come to me and said that he had he had deceased. And other than that, I was asking the coroner some questions, and he said I had to call the coroner. So I called the coroner the next day because it was too late to call that day. So I called the coroner the next day. So the coroner told me I was going off on him about why he didn't take him and friend, why he didn't do this, why he didn't do that. He said, Miss Wade, I didn't have to do all that. Dexter had his several pill balls in his pocket, saying his name was on them. So on the 6th, that Monday, I called mental health, where you go, Hines Behavioral Health, and I called them and got next to Ken. He said, I tried to call. He said, well, he didn't say it that day. He didn't say he tried to call that day. But anyway, he said he tried to call me, but he didn't get in touch with me. So he passed it on to JPD, because really that's their job, to come out and let a person know that their loved one is deceased. So he passed it on to JPD. So he tried to make several attempts before they even buried him. He made several attempts to see had they found the next of kin. And they kept telling him they hadn't found the next of kin. And then they got approval in April to put him in the party field down there. And so he called several times after that. Even after they had got him approved, he called several times after that. And they still said they hadn't found him. So on July the 14th, they laid him to rest.
Roland?
Yeah, go ahead, Ben.
What is even more outrageous is the fact that Miss Dexter Wade is the named plaintiff in a wrongful death lawsuit against the Jackson Police Department for killing her brother, who had a stroke, had been at the hospital 10 days, and they body slammed him and killed him. Our officer was convicted and in prison for killing her brother. She had been doing interviews. She had been to court every day through 2 criminal trials. They had depositions in the civil suit. They absolutely knew who Dexter Wade was. And Miss Wade believes they intentionally did not come to her house to notify her about her son, because she felt that they were afraid that there was going to be another wrongful death lawsuit against the Jackson Police Department, because the officer who hit her was in his Jackson Police Department issued vehicle. There's a question whether he was on duty or not. They say he was not on duty, but because on March 5th when they hit and killed him, they never told Miss Wade or her family anything. They cannot accept this with a leap of faith. You kill my brother, and then you try to deny doing anything wrong there. You deny the wrongful death lawsuit. Now you kill my son, and you don't tell me for 6 months that you killed my son.
Before I go to my panel with questions, so they say the off-duty officer hit him. Was there an investigation? Was the officer given a breathalyzer? Was the car impounded? Was there an actual investigation into this death?
No. No. They did not do anything to the officer. They just took his car to Hicks pound, Hicks. They took it to Hicks towing service, got the car. But they did not get no breathalyzer, none of that. They didn't do nothing to him. They didn't give him no citation. They didn't give him nothing. Not nothing. They didn't take nothing from him. They just took something from my son, took his fluids from him. Didn't give him an autopsy or nothing. I don't have no pictures, nothing to show that that's actually my son. I don't have no fingerprints or nothing. They said he took fingerprints, which I believe Mr. Elliott probably did take fingerprints. I'm not going to say he didn't. But I'm just saying, I don't have anything to say that's him in that grave. I have 672. I have a number, 672, so that's him.
That's on the pole. That's in the Pauper's Field, the graveyard for the indigents. They have all these poles out there, Roland Martin, and on each pole they have a number. And he is number 672, and we're going to exhume his body. We're petitioning the court to do that, and we're going to have an independent autopsy performed, and then we're going to give him the proper funeral that he deserves, and try to get Miss Betterstein some measure of justice for her son and her two granddaughters.
Questions? Joy, you first.
Let me just say what is heartbreaking about this whole evening. It's about lack of humanity, lack of treatment of humanity of our fellow humans. And I can't help believe that if he were anyone else, you would have gotten greater understanding, greater consideration, greater justice for your son already. What are you asking from the city to do at this point?
Well, at this point, they can't say that it wasn't intentionally, because now the more I look at it and the more things put out here, it's intentional, because I gave them my address the second time. So I can't say. So they need to honor up to it. They need to do right by me, the suffering, the pain, and everything I've been through, the looking, the just saying, can't he come home? Where is he? Disappeared off the face of earth. I never saw a person disappear off the face of earth if you don't even know. Nobody has seen him. Nobody know nothing. Jackson police can't find him. Nobody. He's not in the morgue. He's not nowhere. So, I mean, they need to be held accountable for this.
Amen.
Mustafa?
Well, Ms. Wade, I'm praying for justice for you and your family. Then I'm curious. Is there not supposed to be some form of a process when a police officer is involved with a homicide by an automobile? Of course, we know many times it's with a firearm. So what's the normal process?
Well, I'm quite sure now, me, as of knowledge, that they should have gave him a breathalyzer. They should have took him and got, the proper documents and stuff that needed from him. They should have called the highway patrol. I mean, everybody should have been at the incident. It shouldn't have just been a small amount of people there. Everybody should have came to that incident. And they should have notified me in a decent manner of time if they got the information. They should have notified me. They should have came to my door. What is for a knock? I mean, don't we have doors, doorbells? I mean, you can come to the door and ring the doorbell. If I'm not here, leave me a card. What happened to the U.S. mail? We got mail service. They should have sent me a letter and said, hey, Ms. Wade, you need to come down to JPD, important. Would you please come down? Or would you please call us? Something. Something.
Randy.
Yes, ma'am.
It's just something.
Yeah, my absolute deepest condolences to you, really. And I'm thinking, I saw the article where they said they tried to call you, but they couldn't get in touch. It was the wrong number or something. And it made me think about, I have friends when they go on a first date with someone that they don't know, in 1 minute, in 2 minutes of a search, they can find out where this man lives, his telephone number, his place of employment, everything. Those officers, somebody could have contacted you. Not in today's society, there is no excuse. At minimum, this is negligence.
Well, first of all, when you said notify me, and for as the phone number concerned, I went and got evidence. The number they got for mental health is the number I still have. So that's just something that they said. I made sure I went and got a number to what they gave him, gave them, to make sure that they gave them the proper number. And the emergency contact on there is my number I have now. So it was no reason. But they even, like I say, they even had a second chance because I gave them my information. But what's so killing about this whole thing is that when I put out a civil, I asked them to put a civil alert out on him 2 times. The first time, they didn't do it. I called the chief of police. I said, what is it? I didn't tell him now. I didn't tell him what was going on. But I asked him, how do it go by getting civil alert if a missing person? He asked me Dexter's name. Then he said he passed it on, asked me who the detective was. I told him Detective Neal. He said, let me get with the detective and I'll see. Detective came back to me and he said, send a photo of you. Send a clear photo of your son. Then he said, I'm finna get off in a few minutes. Won't you bring it to UPS and I'll take it tomorrow and I'll make sure I get all the documents and everything and send it to the Highway Patrol to put him on civil alert. I waited 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Nothing. So I called Highway Patrol, asked them why they hadn't put my son on civil alert. She said, who is your son? I said, Dexter Alex Wade. She said, hold on a minute. Let me go look and see what's going on. She came back to the phone. She said, Miss Wade, I'm sorry. I went all the way back to 2000. I do not have a Dexter Wade.
My Lord.
What's the Bean? What's next?
Miss Wade and her family have asked us to inquire of the Department of Justice to open an investigation because they do not trust the Jackson, Mississippi local officials nor the Mississippi State investigators because the Attorney General, Roland, I know you got to go, but the Attorney General, when her brother was killed and the officer was convicted, the Trump Republican Attorney General filed an affidavit of appeal on behalf of the officer that was convicted of killing her brother and went against the black prosecutor in Jackson, Mississippi. I have never seen Roland Martin, DA, go against a local prosecutor for prosecuting somebody. But that's what has happened here. That's why Ms. Wade cannot trust them. And I believe when she says it's intentional, she has the facts to back it up, that they were not going to tell her about her son. They were going to try to sweep it under the rug.
Indeed. Ms. Robinson, Ben Crump, we appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Roland Martin.
Thank you.
Folks, a few days ago, Jackson Mayor Chokwe Lumumba had this to say about Dexter's death.
We have found ourselves in the national spotlight recently in the city. Many of you have heard of the tragic loss of Mr. Dexter Wade. I think it is important that we recognize the tremendous loss that his mother suffered and his family has suffered, and that we lift them up in our prayers collectively as a city, and that we continue to support them as a community. This is a tragic circumstance, and it is important that we understand what has taken place. Unfortunately, there was a tragic accident where Mr. Dexter Wade was walking across I-55 highway. While he was walking across the highway, an off-duty JPD officer unfortunately struck Mr. Wade and he passed. The accident was investigated, and it was determined that it was, in fact, an accident and that there was no malicious intent. Unfortunately, at the time, in addition to his loss of life, he was without identification, and the Jackson Police Department was unable to make an ID. The coroner's office later received his body, and they were later able to establish his identity through both fingerprints, and he also had a prescription bottle on him. Then there were efforts, after they located the prescription bottle, to reach out to the medical provider who provided that prescription. That medical provider provided a number which unfortunately was not accurate or not a good number to be used any further. And so they were unable to make contact. Somewhere in the process of them trying to locate with that number, Mr. Wade's mother days later, filed a missing persons report. And the failure is that ultimately there was a lack of communication with the Missing Persons Division, the coroner's office, and accident investigation. And because of that, Mr. Wade, they were unable to find his family within an expeditious period of time, and he was later buried once the coroner went to the Hinds County Board of Supervisors in order to get permission to do so. And so it is tragic to lose your child. It is tragic to suffer the consequences of having to bury your child before you perish. But to add insult to that trauma, it is even more difficult to not have the ability to have a proper burial for your child. And for that, we regret the circumstance that Mr. Wade's family has had to deal with, and so we continue to lift them up in prayer. I do want to be clear that at no point have we identified or did any investigation reveal that there was any police misconduct in this process and that there was any malicious intent. And so it is important that we learn from these circumstances, that we identify ways to improve communication, but it is also important that we don't confuse with community issues of police misconduct in a circumstance which honestly was an unfortunate and tragic accident.
Well, we'll certainly be focusing on this and covering this and to see what happens next. Let me thank Joy, Mustafa, Randy for joining us today on the panel. We certainly appreciate it. Thank you so very much, folks. Don't forget us, support us in what we do. First of all, before I give you all this stuff, remember on Thursday, we're going to be in Richmond, Virginia for our town hall on the campus, Virginia Union University. That's right, 6 to 8 p.m. in the chapel. Look forward to seeing y'all there as we hold our 5th town hall in partnership with the House Virginia Democrats. Again, they are 3 seats away from taking control of the House, and if so, that would get their first black Speaker of the House in Don Scott. So look forward to that. And of course, support us in what we do, folks. Your dollars make it possible for us to do things like that, to be on the road, traveling, talking to people around this country. We got lots of things we want to do in 2024, and so your dollars are critically important. So send your check and money order to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C., 20037-0196. Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Download the Black Star Network app, Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV. Don't forget you can watch our 24-hour, 7-day-a-week streaming channel on all the platforms. Amazon News, just go to Amazon Fire. You can also tell Alexa to play news from the Black Star Network. Plex TV, Amazon Freevee, Amazon Prime Video. Go to their live TV. You can watch our news channel right alongside the rest of them. And be sure to get a copy of my book, White Fear, How the Browning of America is Making White Folks Lose Their Minds. Available at bookstores nationwide. And you two people, hurry up, y'all. We should easily be at 1,000 likes. Y'all been messing around. So before we go, just hit that like button before you get out of here. I'll see y'all tomorrow right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Holla! Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punches! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home. You dig?